The principal function of human life is self-knowing awareness. It is that by which awareness knows itself. Without the self-knowing awareness of a human being, awareness cannot know itself. So that's the primary purpose. And once we come to understand and realize that about ourselves, that we're entirely inseparable from that awareness, just like the color blue is inseparable from the sky. Once we understand that and really directly experience it for ourselves, that is the beginning. That is the beginning of living as self-knowing awareness. But that's only the beginning. And this is the way it's been throughout time. As long as there have been human beings who have realized themselves to be self-knowing awareness, this has been the first step to simply directly experience that we are self-knowing awareness. So rather than it being a destination or an arrival point, that is the first step. And that's very important to recognize. And it's something that we really don't hear talked about that much, especially in the West. We're all Westerners, aren't we? And so, once that's realized, then we have an opportunity for fully manifest enlightenment. And fully manifest enlightenment is not just this initial realization that we are awareness only, but it's the realization of that with great distinction and particularity. What we were talking about yesterday, that there's a wondrousness about it. There is a wonderment to living as a free being, where there is, one could call it an expansion or a magnification of that in every moment. I just call it wonder. It's simply wonder, where ultimate reality is realized in great detail and nuance, and of nuance and capacity to communicate that. So first there is this realization of awareness, self-knowing awareness. And then there's the growing realization of what that means exactly. That it does mean that there's the direct experience of that awareness being empty of any characteristics, like a mirage. There's the realization that it is pure, that this awareness is pure, originally pure, primordially pure, fundamentally pure. And there is the realization that it is wholly positive, entirely positive. So it's called pure awareness because it is originally pure, not as in pure versus impure, but pure as the original essence. Pure as the original essence of everything is pure. And then it's realized also that this is unchanging. So rather, the human experience of that then is that it's unchanging in all of the 3 times of the day, waking, dreaming, and sleeping. This lucidity of awareness is absolutely obvious. So this luminosity or lucidity of awareness is then another distinction of what that is, that it is absolutely lucid, absolutely unchanging at all times. And then based upon that, and you know in yourselves, and you can know too in hearing me communicate about it, that this is very profound. Who we are as human beings is very profound, because rather than this being something that is rare or only for the elect, it's the birthright of everyone. Just as awareness is our fundamental nature, so Buddhahood is our fundamental nature. That can never be taken away from us. You know, every subatomic particle of our being is Buddha nature. So, you know, when we see ourselves in that way, rather than taking ourselves to be some story about ourselves that we've been focusing our awareness on, because really we only have two choices. Either we take the self-knowing awareness and we focus it on a bunch of points of view, which are all points of view of that pure view of awareness. They're never separate from it. Even if we have a story of great pain, suffering, calamity, life is an ordeal, they're all still pure awareness. It's all included and contained within our own awareness. Each perception, no matter what it is rooted in that awareness. But each of these perceptions it's like a mirage. You know, if we came upon a mirage in the desert and we looked at all of its elements and we said, okay, there's the sand and there's the well and there's the young woman in a little tiny skirt serving cocktails and cooling beverages and all these elements of a mirage. No matter how much we wanted them to be so, none of them would ever be so, because they're entirely empty. So no matter what the label is that we put on pure space, it's never anything other than pure space. And this too we realize at some time. At some point we realize that everything, no matter what it is a wholly positive basic space that is the basic space of all perceptions, the basic space of all points of view. So we could call that the substance of who we are. Wholly positive basic space, the wholly positive basic space of everything is what we are. And the functioning of that substance is awareness. It is awareness. So, you know, once we realize the great profundity of who we are, then we find that enlivened within us, enlivened within our body, speech, and mind, but not our body, speech, and mind as we may have been thinking of it. The body, speech, and mind of an individual who has a fragmented existence that's separate from everyone else, but the body, speech, and mind of this wholly positive basic space that is inclusive of all phenomena, inclusive of everything, then that is our realization of our true body, speech, and mind. We never have any individual body, speech, and mind. To say that we have an individual body, speech, and mind is just to make up a story about what's going on with our awareness. And, you know, so the great simplicity of realizing who we are is simply to directly experience that we are this awareness that is inclusive of everything, and then allow the wonder of that to unfold. And it will. As long as we continue to acknowledge it as who we are, it will continue to unfold. But if we say, oh no, I couldn't possibly be a great Buddha, or I couldn't possibly compare myself to this great one or that great one. If we go off on that track, then we're not acknowledging ourselves as we are. Because anyone we have in our perception as a great being, where does that perception originate? That perception originates in us. We're the root of it. We're the root of it, thus that not only implies, but it is a direct statement of who we are. So if we recognize a Buddha, say the greatest Buddha who ever was, Samantabhadra, Shakyamuni Buddha, whoever it is, that's who we are. You know, so when we begin to realize our enlightened body, speech, and mind, all of the activities of our body, speech, and mind become extremely potent. Extremely potent. That means that more and more every thought we have, every word that comes out of our mouths, every small action of our body is an emanation of great benefit. And how does that occur? Well, first of all, we have benefited ourselves in a very direct way by acknowledging ourselves as we are. Only when we do that, when we acknowledge ourselves as we are and we give ourselves that great benefit, can then we possibly be of benefit to anyone else. So once that great benefit is given to ourselves, we give the gift of ourselves to ourselves, then this emanation of great benefit for the whole begins to take place. So the epitome of that, or the pinnacle of that, so to speak, is the magnificence of being what in the Buddhist canon is called Buddhified. Isn't that a great term? Hey, I'm Buddhified. So, and this is the case of all of us. Every subatomic particle of our being is Buddhified. If we wanted to say one thing about ourselves and we wanted to boil it down to one thing that was absolutely true about us, we could say that we're aware that every subatomic particle of our being is Buddhified. Then we'd be talking about ourselves as we really are. We all endeavor to be honest. Well, that would be rigorous honesty. That would be entirely rigorous honesty. Anything else is a pretend honesty. It's some kind of a charade, a story about what honesty is. So you see, when we discover that true honesty, then we live directly from that. But, we don't have to call it anything like honesty or truth or anything. We can just, because really what is doesn't have any special characteristics. And it doesn't have any speculation about being anything or not. The evidence of it is this magnificent quality of great benefit for the whole. And that great benefit expresses itself, the full evidence of it. And this, again, I must say, it's true for every single one of us. So, when we allow ourselves to be who we are, we each have the opportunity to live the full evidence of this in every moment. And the epitome or pinnacle of that is magnificence. The magnificence of being who we are. The magnificence of great blessing for everyone. The magnificence of the use of body, speech, and mind in the way that they are intended to be used. The capacity to confer or transmit the direct introduction to awareness to others through spoken and written communication. And the magnificence of also being able to support people in stabilizing that so that it is a reality. Not just this initial realization of awareness, but the full realization of complete enlightenment. You see, what has always been called for many thousands of years, prior to Shakyamuni Buddha, there was a whole tradition of Buddhas in Tibet that stretches back 17,000 years. And the what is called bodhicitta is to live one's life, every expression of one's body, speech, and mind, for the complete enlightenment of all beings. So the complete enlightenment of all beings, as you can see, is very distinct from saying, I'm going to live my life to lessen the suffering of all beings. To dedicate and devote one's life to the complete enlightenment of all beings is very distinct from lessening suffering. And then two, to know what complete enlightenment is distinct from saying, oh, awareness is enlightenment. So you see, we should never sell ourselves short, as I say, or hold anything back, and just completely have faith. This is the true meaning of faith, that we are who we are, and just allow that to unfold magnificently in ourselves as it comes more and more into full expression. You know, it's just like, say, we found an incredible treasure chest. My dreams are all like these incredible allegories of something much better than anything I could ever drum up, you know, sitting around twiddling my thumbs. All of the dream is a magnificent expression, you know, anything that can be imagined. What enlightened body, speech, and mind is way beyond anything that could ever be imagined. So, you know, once I had a dream, this was a very long time ago, and I was on a cruise ship, and I dove into the sea, and it was pitch black. I couldn't see a thing. I was out in the middle of the ocean, and I dove in, and I was swimming in this blackness. I didn't know whether I was up, down, sideways, or what was going on. And I was swimming along and kind of feeling around me, and all of a sudden I felt something. So I got this thing, and I brought it back up, and I put it on the ship, and it was a treasure chest. So I opened up the treasure chest, and the treasure chest was filled with jewels. But see, the jewels could only be taken out one at a time, you know, or several at a time. It was like a bottomless jewel chest. There was just more and more and more in there. And so finding the first few jewels is realizing our awareness. And then the more we get into that treasure chest, you know, the more and more jewels there are. This is the reality of our precious human existence. So you see, that's why I asked if you had 6 months. Because it is so key that we talk openly about these things at this point in human history, to realize that we are greatly empowered beyond our wildest imagining. You know, that any kind of power we've ever heard about as existing in anyone else, that all these are our powers too. And you know, why is that important? Because we're on the brink of disaster. You know, our world is, the planet Earth is on the brink of disaster. In many ways, we all know that. And to one degree or another feel helpless or powerless about that, no matter how much we do. But what we can do is realize our own nature, our true nature. You see, only through the realization for human beings of realizing ourselves as we are, can we really have the force of turning the tide. So it's very important. It's of utmost importance.